Good evening. Welcome to California Today. I'm Liang Zhang. Here's a preview of some of today's stories. Inflation-related payments may be making their way to Californians. That's after state leadership signed an agreement in the state budget. We'll have the details on how much may be paid out. A bill is making its way through the legislation that would cement gender-affirming care into the state. Parents spoke out citing their children going through the situation. A bill is making its way through the legislation that would cement gender-affirming care into the state. Parents spoke out citing their children going through such situations. Californians could get payments for inflation relief after officials sign an agreement on the new state budget. But critics say the governor should suspend the gas tax increase instead.
Governor Gavin Newsom, Senate President Pro Tem Tony Atkins, and Assembly Speaker Anthony Rendon agreed on a $17 billion inflation relief package on Sunday. 23 million working Californians will receive tax refunds, with payments of up to $1,000. The package also includes a suspension of the state sales tax on diesel and additional funds to help people pay rent and utility bills. According to the joint statement, California's budget addresses the state's most pressing needs and prioritizes getting dollars back into the pockets of millions of Californians who are grappling with the global inflation and rising prices of everything from gas to groceries. But critics like Republican Congressman David Valadao say Californians are paying the highest gas prices in the country, but Newsom and state Democrats are letting the gas tax increase on Friday. Gas tax is scheduled to increase by 3 cents on July 1st. In a letter to the governor on Monday, a group of GOP lawmakers renewed a request to suspend the California gas tax. They wrote, "A full repeal of the state gas tax in March could have saved Californians $17 million per day and $1.5 billion to date. But instead, they were forced to pay an additional 51 cents per gallon as a result of California's gasoline tax, the highest in the nation." They requested a full gas tax repeal in March, when people were paying $4.80 per gallon. Now, according to AAA, state gas prices averaged to $6.31 per gallon.
A bill that will further cement gender-affirming care in California has passed the Assembly Health Committee. This is despite widespread concern, especially about its application to children.
Senator Scott Wiener's Senate Bill 923 would force all health insurers to make staff complete evidence-based cultural competency training. The goal is to provide trans-inclusive health care to people who identify as transgender, gender-diverse, or intersex. Staff members accused of failing to provide trans-inclusive health care would be forced to take a refresher course. Senator Scott Wiener defended the bill at a hearing on June 21st. He claims that there have been atrocious and vile attacks towards the trans community.
And the signal that it sends to that community and to kids in particular is just really devastating.
Other states have taken a different approach, instead deeming transitioning minors child abuse. Senator Wiener claimed that California was instead going to support transitioning minors. Many parents have taken an opposing stance. They say that many claims about transitioning children are wrong.
The promised euphoria and alleviation of my son's mental health problems have not occurred from the misnamed gender-affirming care, but the irreversible harms of sterility likely have.
Some parents do not believe that denying their children conversion therapy causes a greater chance of suicide.
My child is one of the lucky ones. All of her doctors, therapists, and school counselors said that she would commit suicide if I did not affirm her. I ignored them. See, I had read all the suicide studies, and I knew what they were saying was untrue. Today, my daughter is happy in her unaltered female body.
On the other hand, proponents of this bill are backed by companies such as Planned Parenthood.
A concerned parent pointed out a website that teaches children as young as 13 ways to obtain drugs like hormone blockers. The website acknowledges that some of the ways it's recommended may be illegal. Here's a look.
A website directed towards teens who feel they are transgender describes ways to obtain cross-sex hormones without parental consent. A concerned parent named Kelly Shinkowski in California's Monterey County gave details about the website known as transgendermap.com. She discovered it by clicking on a series of links beginning with the local Salinas High School webpage. The page displays other links including transteenproject.org. Shinkowski told the Epoch Times the material is unbelievably shocking and the public deserves to know what's going on. She objects to what she sees as blatantly advertising potentially life-altering medical products to children. Part of the Transgender Map site tells teens how to get hormones as a transgender minor. The website writes, even if you do not think you can start hormones yet, you should think about taking a hormone blocker to make your puberty stop. This is one of the most important things you can do at your age. One suggested way is to pay a person over the age of 18 to buy the drugs from an online pharmacy. The website acknowledges they need to know this is probably against the law. A small disclaimer at the bottom of the page states this is medical talk, not medical advice, and suggests that users do their research. Many proponents of gender-affirming care claim that not providing care to affirm the children can lead to youth suicide. Opponents argue that gender-affirming care and transgender medicine are part of the problem, not the solution.
One county could be seeing a legal drug in its schools meant to counteract a deadly illicit drug. The legal drug is NARCAN. The proposal comes after a fentanyl task force was formed following a substantial increase in fentanyl poisoning deaths. NTD's David Lamb reports.
Officials in Santa Clara County want to combat the fentanyl drug crisis, especially in teens. Now they're saying Narcans can be used to save lives, especially from people overdosing.
On Monday, officials said there's a need for funding to purchase and distribute fentanyl testing strips and Narcan in schools. According to Healthline, Narcan is a brand-name drug and contains an active ingredient that can be used to treat a suspected overdose.
So that any local school in our community will have the opportunity to have access to this resource.
County Supervisor Cindy Chavez hopes to discuss the details during Tuesday's board meeting. Narcan is given as a nasal spray, and officials hope to discuss with parents and educators about its use for students.
Do you think it would make them more likely to experiment with drugs in that case?
Yeah, I think that one of the challenges we have is that children and young people are experimenting now with drugs. And, you know, I think one of the points that we want to make really clear is that we're not encouraging young people to take drugs, but we do want to make sure that they survive that experience. And that's really what the challenge that we have is right now ahead of us.
Narcan, or naloxone, is an FDA-approved medication used to treat people for a known or suspected opioid overdose. Chavez says each individual school would decide how to make the items accessible. She said there are plans to have it accessible throughout the community and even at restaurants. Another proposed option is fentanyl testing strips.
Fentanyl strips allow an individual to test the drugs that they have to identify whether or not fentanyl is in them. There have been a number of overdose and deaths among young people who had used street drugs that they were unaware of the fentanyl in it. And the fentanyl is such a highly addictive and lethal drug that many of them that died unsuspectingly.
Santa Clara County formed its fentanyl working group in April this year to combat overdoses from the lethal painkiller, which can be 50 to 100 times stronger than heroin or morphine. Though the drug often comes in through the usual illicit routes, it's produced far away.
So it is coming through Mexico, through the ports too, and some of the precursors, meaning the ingredients to make it, are coming from China.
Liang said there are at least 41 reported deaths in Santa Clara County this year.
And when it's coming over, it's generally coming over as a finished product, so as fentanyl, and sometimes it's also coming over as pressed pills.
The County Office of Education is in the process of developing a Narcan distribution policy, a training program, and other resources. As for when it be implemented, the county hopes to make them available as early as fall, if the board approves. David Lamb, NTD News, California.
We're going to take a short break, but here's a look at what we got for you when we come back. Federal authorities seized a Russian superyacht in Southern California. The seizure is in connection to discouraging Russia from continuing the conflict in Ukraine. Environmental red tape is causing more wildfires than it's preventing. A new study shows that certain environmental protection activities delay clearing of wildfire fuel for years. And an author has adapted The Wizard of Oz with his own cultural twist. Our reporter spoke to the Latino writer about what encouraged him to write this new version of the classic American tale. That and more on California Today. A $325 million superyacht belonging to a sanctioned Russian oligarch arrived in the United States on Monday. Authorities seized it in San Diego Bay.
The 348-foot-long Amadia flew an American flag as it sailed past a retired aircraft carrier, USS Midway, and under San Diego's Coronado Bridge. Federal authorities then seized the vessel. In a statement, the Department of Justice said, after a trans-Pacific journey of over 5,000 miles, the Amadia has safely docked in a port within the United States and will remain in the custody of the U.S. government pending its anticipated forfeiture and sale. According to the FBI, the luxury vessel belongs to the Russian oligarch Solomon Kerimov. In March, a task force was created to seize the assets of Russian oligarchs to put pressure on Russia to end the war on Ukraine. Authorities say Kerimov secretly bought the vessel last year through various shell companies. The United States won a legal battle in Fiji to take the Cayman Islands flagged superyacht earlier this month. The Amadia made a stop in Honolulu Harbor en route to the U.S. mainland.
The Los Angeles District Attorney recently defended his policies during a discussion on previous criminal cases. He attributed the public's criticisms to misinformation. NTD's Cynthia Kai has the story.
Los Angeles District Attorney George Gascon defended his policy decision in the 2009 case of Victor Bibaino in a webinar last week. The case involved a juvenile charged with a double murder. The suspect was released from serving a life sentence and went on to commit another murder. But Gascon says misinformation led the public to criticize his policies.
Again, this is one of those cases where misinformation is very prevalent, and and you have people that really are not familiar with the case, making legal opinions, and quite frankly, people that do not understand juvenile law, which I know it may sound to some of you as overly complicated, but
however, critics blame Gascon for soft on crime policies. His policies have been attributed to the recent death of 2 police officers. The officers were ambushed during a domestic violence call and died after a shootout. Gascon is also facing a recall effort. The recall has surpassed the needed signatures ahead of the July 6th deadline, but is currently adding more signatures to cushion any losses during the verification process. Meanwhile, the recall effort is getting support from the leader of another recent effort. Richie Greenberg is joining the effort. He founded the movement that succeeded in recalling San Francisco's District Attorney Chesa Boudin. Greenberg is meeting with leaders of the committee undertaking the Gascon recall to provide consulting and support. Cynthia Kai, NTD News, California.
Recent years have seen some of the biggest wildfires in the documented history of the western United States. A new report illustrates how bureaucracy and litigation slow down prescribed burns and treatments of wildfire-prone lands.
A new report from the Property and Environment Research Center, or PERC, found that environmental bureaucracy leads to more severe wildfires. One category of fire management on average takes 7 years to actually start after the project begins. Jonathan Wood, Vice President of Law and Policy at PERC, told the Epoch Times that this is a problem that has been getting worse every decade for the past century. The report comes half a year after the Biden administration pledged to treat 50 million additional acres of forest land over the next decade, with a $5 to $6 billion price tag. Wood added, despite the growing consequences and pretty much bipartisan support of solutions that everyone understands, they're not happening at anything like the scale needed to address the problem. The fastest kind of wildfire fuel treatment is mechanical treatment, but the report found that it starts an average of 2.9 years after project initiation. Fire management by prescribed burn can take up to 7 years. Many of these problems come down to litigation by environmental groups. One argument is the destruction of natural habitats. But Wood said wildfires will do more damage to animal habitats than prescribed burns or mechanical clearing.
The Wizard of Oz is an American classic. Just like any classic, new adaptations are being made of Dorothy's story. NTD's Jackie Reels talked to one author who made a version employing his own flavoring of culture in a version titled Out Oz.
David Damian Figueroa gave the beloved tale of self-discovery a Latino twist. He talked about some of the adaptations that readers will find in his book, El Oz.
I grew up as an agriculture worker. I grew up as a farm worker in Arizona, so there's a little bit of agriculture in there. I went to Mexico many, many times to the pyramids, and I was very inspired by the Aztecs and the Mayans and all of the different characters and the spirits and the names they would give to each of the spirits. And so I did the food. So there's a little bit of all of that in this book.
El Oz is about a young girl named Dolores and her dog Pepito who, just like Dorothy and Toto, find themselves in a strange land and need to find their way home. David recalls growing up with his mother, spending family time reading to him.
So I grew up with my mother reading the Bible to me, and I really loved that time. It was like our family time. And so it really shaped a lot who I am today. And so I learned a lot through the lessons she would give me through the Bible or any other book that she was reading to me. And so I wanted to create a family reading novel that parents could read to their children.
David says the book stands on its own and has a positive message.
It's a story of forgiveness. It's a story of finding your path, staying on your divine path. And it's a story also of friendship and companions. But it's also about transforming oneself through forgiveness.
The name for Dolores was inspired by his longtime friend and mentor, Dolores Huerta. As for Pepito, David had a beloved dog named Pepito, who after raising for 17 years, passed away before the book came out. El Oz is now available for purchase. Jackie Rios, NTD News, Los Angeles.
Now to NTD's Thomas Christian for an update on sports.
I'm Thomas Christian, giving you the California Today Sports Roundup. Los Angeles wide receiver Cooper Kupp said the Rams have the passion and personnel to win back-to-back Super Bowls and can do so if they focus on steadily improving every week. In his breakout 5th season, Kupp led the league in receptions, receiving touchdowns, and receiving yards, and saved his best for last, catching 2 touchdown passes, including the dramatic game winner, to earn Super Bowl MVP honors.
Yeah, well, I mean, winning the Super Bowl in general is an incredibly challenging thing to accomplish. There's so much that has to go right, things that are outside of your control as well. All you can do is trust your process and trust that you're going to put yourself in the best position possible to win.
Kupp earlier this month signed a 3-year, $80 million contract extension with the Rams, a record for a wide receiver.
I know this is a culmination of so many people. I'm just a small piece of what the whole is. And so that's kind of the thing that the perspective that we had going into that. And, obviously incredibly thankful to be able to secure my family and, my boys and then their children in the future. And so it's definitely not something we take lightly. And I'm very thankful for the Rams and giving us that opportunity.
The contract's guarantee of $75 million is the highest amount of guaranteed money ever given to an NFL wide receiver. Not bad for a third-round pick out of Eastern Washington. The selfless Kupp, who wore quarterback Matthew Stafford's jersey while inking the eye-popping deal, credited his teammates, coaches, and family for his success. Chris Taylor came off the bench to get 3 hits, including the go-ahead RBI double in the 11th inning to help Los Angeles rally late and beat host Atlanta. Taylor doubled in a run with 1 out in the 11th and scored on a Trey Turner single to center field to spark a 2-run rally against reliever Darren O'Day. The winning pitcher was Craig Kimbrell. The Dodgers forced extra innings when they erased a 2-0 deficit in the 9th inning by scoring twice against Atlanta closer Kenley Jansen, who suffered his 4th blown save. Dodgers 5, Braves 3 in 11. David McKinnon's 2-out RBI single in the 7th inning snapped a 1-1 tie and lifted the Anaheim Angels to a 2-1 victory over the Seattle Mariners in a fight-marred game Sunday afternoon in Anaheim, California. The fight took place in the top of the 2nd inning when Angels pitcher Andrew Wantz hit the Mariners' Jesse Winker with a pitch on the right hip. After taking a couple steps forward to the mound, Winker then moved towards the Angels' dugout. Wearing a cast on his surgically repaired right wrist, Anthony Rendon met Winkler with an open hand to the face, and both benches and bullpens emptied as several skirmishes broke out. The game resumed after an 18-minute delay, but with several ejections, including Angels interim manager Phil Nevin and Mariners manager Scott Servais. 3 players from each team were ejected. Wantz and relievers Raciel Iglesias and Ryan Tepera for the Angels, Winker and fellow outfielder Julio Rodriguez and shortstop J.P. Crawford for the Mariners. Angels 2, Mariners 1. Nick Allen's 2-run single in the 7th inning proved to be the difference in Oakland's win over host Kansas City. Allen's hit enabled Oakland to take the rubber match of the 3-game series, giving the A's their first series win since taking 2 of 3 games in Seattle. The Royals, who had taken 2 of 3 games when the teams met in Oakland last weekend, haven't won a series at home since taking 2 of 3 contests against the Minnesota Twins back in April. Athletics 5, Royals 3. Kyle Schwarber erased a 2-run deficit with a 3-run 7th inning homer off reliever Nabil Crismat, and Phillies relievers continued their domination of San Diego hitters as visiting Philadelphia rallied past the Padres. Yu Darvish gave up 3 runs on 7 hits and a walk in 6 innings with a season-high 9 strikeouts for the Padres. Phillies 8, Padres 5.
And that's all for your California Today Sports Roundup.
That's all for tonight. You can join us again on California Today every weekday at 8:30 p.m. If you have any news tips or ideas for our show, or just want to let us know how we're doing, our email is california.today@ntd.com. I'm Lang Zhang. Have a wonderful evening.